Alright guys, show of hands. Who has a problem keeping it up on target? Hey guys, Robert with RC Archery, and today I've got 4 tips to help you keep your bow up on target. Alright, so tip number 1. Basically we want to look at this like a seesaw. So the way that we set up our bow hand versus the height of our shoulder is going to help us shift the weight and shift the holding balance. So whenever we go to draw back and hold on target, if we hold with our bow hand, meaning this part of our hand right here, our thumb part, if we look at that joint on here, that's a good reference point. If we look at that in reference to the height of our shoulder, if we hold that down below like it is now, below this point of our shoulder, all the weight, just like a seesaw, is going to go down. It's going to be on our bow hand. That's going to make it really hard for us to hold the bow up. It's going to make us forcefully have to hold the bow. It's going to create a downward, slope, and it's going to make it really easy for us as we're aiming to see that pin start dipping down, or to just see a bob on target, or having to hold the bow and bounce it back up and up on target. The correct way to do this, the easiest way to do this, to kind of work along with your body and the structure of it, is to keep this joint here on your thumb, to keep that at the line of your shoulder or just above. And what that's going to do is cause a positive balance to be able to hold your bow on target. If you hold your arm out just normally, whether you hold it with your bow or a weight, or just pick up a water jug and lift it up that way, you can hold it up and you can kind of find a balance point where if you're right even with your shoulder or just a little bit above it, all that weight kind of shifts back, and it's going to shift more back to the centralized portion of our body and back on that shoulder and our midsection, our core section. That's really going to help you be able to hold that bow up. It's going to keep you from wanting to let it drop down on target. Alright, so tip number 2 is how we draw our bow, what we do with our bow hand and our release hand. So the way that we draw our bow and the way that we prime our muscles and set everything up is really the foundation to our shot, and it's what's going to help us be able to hold the bow up on target. It's what's going to be able to help us keep from bobbing down low. So whenever you go to draw your bow, you want to be able to start with your bow hand just above your shoulder. You don't need to sky draw it where you're doing anything crazy, but that little bit of positive balance where it's just above your shoulder area. And the same thing with your release. You want that release hand to stay up around your nose to your chin, somewhere in that area, and then as you're drawing, come down somewhere around your face and your shoulder. You don't ever want to draw with your hand coming way down below that shoulder. Normally what that's going to mean is that you're overbowed and you're having to muscle and use your arms. Now the downside of that is when you're using those arm muscles, you're not using your back, and it's extremely hard, if not impossible, to load your back muscles to be able to hold steadier on target if you don't use them to draw your bow. So keeping that arm up, keeping the elbow up, when you go to draw back, that's naturally going to start engaging your back muscles. So you'll be using your arm and your back. Now it's going to primarily want to use your back muscles more, so when you first start using this technique, it may feel like you can't draw the bow as well, but that's because those muscles that you're going to be using to draw that bow aren't developed yet. So if you feel that, keep that in mind and just work through it, and over time you'll start to build those muscles up. Now one thing that I will say is you don't want the elbow really sky high. You want it to be kind of a little bit above level. If you get it too high, you're going to start to put a lot of strain on your shoulder, and that's going to cause some impingement issues and some other potential issues that you just want to stay away from. So whenever you go to draw that bow, you want to keep everything in line up here, draw back, and then let everything sink down to where this knuckle on your thumb is just above or right at that shoulder, and where you come down and anchor in. So I'll do that real quick here. I'll let you see what that looks like as I draw back and anchor on target. Bow hand, release hand up, coming back for the draw, and then letting everything sink down here to go into my anchor. Alright guys, so tip number 3 is going to be weighting your bow on your stabilizers to be able to have that bow arm and the muscles holding that arm up engaged. Having those muscles engaged is what's going to help you keep the bow up on target and keep you holding in the center. When you don't engage those muscles, when you have an opposite balance, you're going to have to relax them and actually let that arm drop. And when you do that, you start letting it overcorrect, overdrop, and then you're lifting it up, and then it's just a cycle where it goes back and forth. Now, the way that I have my bow balance, and everyone's going to be a little bit different, but what I do is I put a 1-to-2 ratio front to back, and that's a general idea where I start, and then I'll adjust from there. I tried some different ratios in the past. 1-to-2 seems to work best for me, because what I want this bow to do whenever I'm holding it here at brace, when I let go of it, I want it to lean forward. Leaning forward at brace means that that bow has a slightly forward balance, so as I put some forces into it to draw it back, and then even more as I put forces into it through my shot, I want that bow to stay where it's level. I don't want it to be too front light, because then as I induce forces on the draw and I induce forces on my shot, it's going to lift the front of that bow up, and that's going to cause some problems. So that's why I like a front weighted bow. And also, being front weighted like that, you're actually going to have to hold it up. So all these muscles here on our side, everything in our shoulder, holding that arm up with our back muscles included, they're engaged and they're holding that bow up for us. Alright guys, so tip number 4 is going to be having a dynamic shot. So you've heard me talk about this in the past, but that little push towards target and the pull especially on that release hand is going to help you keep your dot up on the target. And the reason that is because you have a continual force as you're pulling through the shot, and also a continual force pushing as you're working through that shot. And that's keeping the muscles engaged, and it's keeping everything working, and it's keeping you from bobbing on target, and you're not stopping and starting, and you're not changing muscle tension from adding to relaxing. That's when you get into a lot of those problems where you start to see that pin drop down on target, or you start to see a bob, is when you start to add and subtract tension throughout your shot. Once you start adding, you want to add it slowly but steadily all the way through, and that way it'll keep you from, bobbing up and down on target. It'll keep you centered. I'm going to take one shot. I actually have this bow set just a touch short for me, where it's going to, basically create me a little bit more, compactness. That way you'll be able to see just more of what I'm doing as I work through the shot. I'm going to have to push and kind of exaggerate my push coming out and also my pull coming through, and that's going to be able to show you kind of the motions on what I'm doing. Now, I'm going to create a video just for this because it's something that it's in my instructional video that I have out on how to shrink your groups and raise your averages, so I'm not going to go into a huge, deep detailed information, but it is going to be part of it on a shot execution video that I'm going to have coming out pretty soon on my YouTube channel as well. But basically the push and the extension that I'm going to have is going to be coming from my elbow joint pushing through my bow, and that's what I found to make me the most steadiest on target, and it's also what I found to be able to get the best groups. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot one here, and I'll let you see what it looks like. So that bow arm's going to stand, up on the target. It's not going to be dropping down, directly after the shot. It's going to have a steady level motion because that's the way that my muscles are engaged to hold it up. Same with my release hand. It's going to come straight back because that's the direction that I'm pulling, and that's what's going to help me keep my shots. I appreciate you watching the video today. If you have any questions, if anything runs through your mind, put some comments down below. You can also email me. You can go to my website, rcarchery.com. There's a contact section there for me. Be glad to talk to you. Be glad to help you out. I also offer some coaching services as well, so I can help you with your form, shot execution, and even bow tuning. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you soon. Just as a side note, this is going to be an after thing, and I posted this on my Instagram channel so you can see it too, but just in case you don't have the Instagram channel, shooting these videos has gotten kind of expensive. This is one of my arrows that I shot. This was actually the arrow that you saw me shoot on target was arrow 2 of a group. This was the first arrow down in the target, and it's done for. So have to replace that one. See what I go through just to be able to film these for you.